Have you started to play with the Mindseye builder and thought to yourself, how do I make NPCs get out of the vehicle like this? Alternatively, how do I get them into vehicles in the first place? Well, stay tuned as I walk you through how I assign animations to NPCs. Hi, my name is Mike, and with a face for radio and a voice for print, I'm here to show you how I set up animations for NPCs. I've chosen this remote area outside of the town, so we won't be bothered by any townsfolk or traffic. The first step is to choose which vehicle we want to use. There are both flying vehicles and ground vehicles. Today I'm going to use a ground vehicle, and I think I'll choose the Coupe Sport, mostly because it's the first option. Once you have it placed, you have the option of giving it a distinct paint color. I do enjoy a nice red metallic paint job. Once our vehicle is placed, now we need to choose an NPC actor to get into the vehicle. So I'll go ahead and just click on NPC, and again I'll just choose the first option here, Army. Feel free to choose whatever you want, but I'll again just go ahead and pick the first option. Quick side note here, when placing NPCs they're going to default to hostile, which means when you go to test what you've built, they will attack you. They have several different factions to choose from. I would choose one of the friendlier ones while building, then feel free to make them hostile again when you're done testing. So, now how do we get the NPC to interact with the vehicle? Well, we need to use logic. I'll go ahead and click on logic here. There are several different types of logic you can pick from. For this, I need logic that will affect NPCs. So I'll go ahead and click on the AI tab. Again, a few options here too, but what I want to control is their behavior, so I'll click there. What I'm looking for here is something called the Interact Node. This allows the NPC to interact with a specific object, in this case, our vehicle. If you're not sure where something is located within the menus, but you do know the name of it, you can also use the search tab at the top here and just type in the name of the object you're looking for. So, we have our Interact Node, our NPC, and our vehicle. Let's take a look at the Interact Node. When you click on a node, there may be several boxes listed underneath it. These are the input and output actions for each node. They basically send instructions or receive instructions from other connected nodes. You can usually tell the difference between the two when both are present, designated by the gap in between the two sections of the node. This is the single input currently available, and these are all the outputs available. As you can see, there are quite a few. Each one has its own little tooltip to help you figure out how to connect other nodes to it. Some nodes only have inputs, some only have outputs, but many have a combination of both. If you try and connect an output box of a node with another output box of another node, the builder will not allow you to complete that connection. So this target interaction object is an output node, not an input. The vehicle only outputs that information, so since they're both outputs, they cannot connect. And when we click on it, we see the two blue input boxes on the interaction node light up. This means the interact node will accept the output vehicle actor from the vehicle. So we mouse over the two available blue boxes. One says set interaction object, while the other says set interacting character. Since we want the vehicle to be the object to interact with, we click on that option. Now, we click on the NPC and look at its available outputs. Color coding is also helpful when trying to connect two nodes. When you mouse over the blue event spawned AI, that means when this AI spawns, this outputs the identification of that NPC to whichever input it's connected to. So, we connect it to the set interacting character input of the interact node. Great. Let's go ahead and give it a test. So this is why it's important to test early and to test often. You don't want to spend hours on a project, then try it, and have it break on step 1. Many of the nodes within the builder require activation in order for them to actually do anything. Just placing them into the world doesn't just make them work. They have to be activated first. So how can you tell if it needs to be activated? Well, if you take a look here at the Interaction node, it has that little play button there in orange. That means it requires activation in order to actually do anything. In order to activate the node, you need another node pointing to the input of the node you're trying to activate to start it. A little complicated, but I'll show you what I mean. You need some kind of event, something to trigger what it is you're trying to do. Since we want this character to get into the car as soon as we start the level, one of the first things I typically like to use when testing is what's called an onStart node. If you take a look at this node, you'll notice that there's only one option, one output, event onStart. What this basically means is that when the level, or otherwise known as arc, loads, whatever this output is connected to will start. Remember, test early, test often. Okay. So why am I testing something that I obviously know won't work? Well, because it's important to understand 2 points. First, again, test early, test often. And secondly, there are sometimes little nuances to how these tools in this builder work, and it's important to recognize them when they show up. For example, with the onStart node, sometimes it loads so quickly that it triggers before anything else has a chance to load. So by the time our interact node is loaded into the arc, the start node has already triggered. We need to edit our interaction slightly. In order to delete the connection between the start node and the interaction node, you just mouse over it until it's highlighted, and then you press the keyboard command you see on your screen, Alt plus left mouse click to delete it. In order to get around this limitation of the start node, I'll introduce a small delay. Go ahead and find the delay node, then put it next to the start node. The delay node has 2 boxes, an input and an output. You want to click on the start node's output event onStart. Then connect it to the input of the delay node, the function activate. It's the same orange play button. Now, we will set a delay in seconds. I think about 6 seconds might work. Then, click on the output from the delay node, event onFinished, and point it to the input of the interact node, function start interaction. Alright, I'll do another quick test, and once the arc loads, I'll wait a few seconds for the delay node, and she jumps into the car. That's how you get NPCs to interact with vehicles. There are a few other things about the interact node I'd like to show you. First, I'll change the slot to use from fill to by index. From what I can tell, fill just tells the NPCs to take whatever seat they can, and by index specifies a specific seat. This is a 2-passenger vehicle, so it has 2 indexes. The driver is number 1, and the passenger is number 2. I'll go ahead and change it to the number 2, and we'll see what happens. After a few seconds for the delay node, she circles around the vehicle and gets into the passenger seat. This can be helpful if you want to set up some kind of escort mission or have a mission with a buddy. Alright, cool. We can get them into either seat. That's great. But how do we make them exit the vehicle? I can hear you saying from the comment section. we have to set up a secondary interaction node. Interaction nodes can only be used by one NPC at a time, and they can only use one for each action. So one to get in, one to get out. So we'll need to go ahead and make a copy of this interaction node. So what we can do is over here under the tools section, there's an option that says duplicate. You can click on that, and that will make another one. You can Control C and then click. That's your typical copy paste. Or you can do what I prefer to do, is just hold Control and then push D as in duplicate, and that will create a brand new node right there on top of the node that you already have, and then just slide it over. I'll go ahead and hook up the interact node the same way I did the first one. We'll connect the output vehicle actor to the input set interaction object, then the output spawned AI to the input set interacting character. Now we have to activate this interaction node somehow. There are many options, but for demonstration purposes, I'll just make her get out almost as soon as she gets in. Taking a look at our first interaction node, we can see several outputs. This output on interaction started sounds like what I mentioned, so we'll connect that one to the input stop interaction. Some of you might have already seen a potential issue. If we set it up like this, she'll get in and then get immediately right back out. In order to make sure everything's working the way that I intend to, I'll introduce another smaller delay. I'll connect the unfinished output node to the stop interaction input node. Then I'll go ahead and change the delay from 6 to about 3 seconds. Now I need to activate our delay. So I'll go back to my first interaction node and select the on interaction started output and connect it to the input activate. Alright, doing another little test here. We'll wait for our actor to get into the car. After the delay, she circles around, hops in. After she hops in, 1, 2, 3, and she hops back out. That's not all that you can do with the interact node. As you can see here, I have an NPC and an animation ready to go. But when I click on the animation, it has no input or output boxes at all. How are we supposed to use these? Well, clicking back on the interact node and looking at the options, you can see under the output options there's a target interaction object box. It's white. So when you click on that box, there's still no corresponding boxes on the animation. But as you mouse over it, you'll notice that there is now this blue outline, meaning that it is a valid selection for our output. So go ahead and click on it. The arrow confirms that it is a valid selection. Then we just got to hook up the spawned AI output to the set interacting character input. We still have to trigger our interaction node though. Another option you can do to trigger it is to make the animation happen as soon as the NPC spawns. To do that, you just click on the NPC, and then up here at the top, you choose on the AI spawned output and connect it to the start interaction input. This will make it so that as soon as the NPC spawns, he will do the animation. Look at him go. One more thing I will add is if you watch that last scene closely, you can actually watch the NPC walk from where he spawns to where the animation is, and then does the animation. You can make him just start doing the animation as soon as he spawns by checking the skip animation checkbox in the interaction node. Then, when the NPC spawns, he'll immediately start his animation without walking to it first. I'd like to thank those who sat through this whole video. I hope it was helpful. I know it was a bit long, but I tried to explain it to someone who's new to the tools as best as I could. I'm not a professional at this by any means, and this is really the first video I've ever tried to make. If I've used terminology incorrectly, or you have clarifying information, or you just want to say something snarky, the comments section is there. You can also reach me on the Everywhere or Mindseye Discord, or just send me a DM through Discord to Grungy Mike. Perhaps I'll make some more of these in the future.